on the apples of your cheek, because as we age, that apple gets a little farther from the tree. So I like to just, hi everyone, I'm Jodi and welcome to my channel. I'm really glad that you're here today. We are doing a two-part series. Part one that you're watching right now is gonna be how to create a flawless foundation on mature skin for an everyday makeup or no makeup look. That's gonna end up like this. And the next video coming out, which will be part two, we'll take it from that daytime look to this soft glam look. The holidays are coming quickly and there are going to be many a day where we're gonna have one look in the day and we're gonna come home and find out that there is something planned that evening that we either forgot about or somebody might have forgot to mention to us. So we've got to turn that look around really quickly, and we need to do it with just a few products, a few simple steps, and I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know. So to complete the whole look to this soft glam look, make sure you hit that notification bell so that you're notified when next week's video comes out, which will be the follow-up, that evening glam look to today's daytime flawless foundation look. If you're ready, let's get started. All right, you guys, so to start this look, I want to make sure that my face is really moisturized and prepped, especially as we get more mature and our skin tends to get a little bit more dry. Ensuring that you've got a nice, plump, moisturized base to start from is important. So I like to start off with this Diabla face mist. It's got just a little bit of oil in it, and I like to just spray everywhere on my face. Now I've already done my skincare routine for the day. I've got my sunscreen on. This is now that transition into that prep area, then going into makeup. So this does not replace any skincare. The skincare has been completed and now we go into prep. So I just want to spray that everywhere, all over my face, and just let that sit in. Now I also know that where I need a little extra moisturizer is right underneath my eyes, because that's the area that gets the most dry. So I like to go in with the Kiehl's Midnight Recovery Oil, and I just take a few little drops of that and I put it on with the ring finger and just lightly tap that underneath that eye area. And I do this sparingly. I have found that when I get a little bit too generous with this oil, my concealer doesn't quite sit right. In fact, it will slip a little bit throughout the day. I find that my mascara doesn't wear as well, which obviously those things make sense because you're adding oil, and any of those products like mascara or concealer, foundation, any of that is now on a slippery surface. So I do need it, I just need to use it more sparingly, and that is also an area where less is more. So letting that sit into the skin. Now I'm gonna go in and start with my foundation first, which is my base. Now I am a YSL lover, as you guys know. I just recently did a video on why this is my favorite foundation. I am using an old bottle because I have about 3 of them, so I want to use those up before I go back into my new bottle. My old color is B40, and the new color, which is a great matching shade, is MN5. I'm just going to take two and a half, maybe 3 pumps of that on the back of my hand. Then I'm going to take a damp beauty sponge, because I'm not going for a full glam look. I'm really just going for an everyday, going to work, running errands, whatever your day looks like type of a look. So I just want to get some of that on the back of my hand and then pick it up with a beauty sponge. If you put it right in the beauty sponge, sponges are meant to absorb, and that's what it will do. I don't want to waste this product. It is not cheap, so I just want to make sure that I use it sparingly and that I pick it up from the back of my hand and it lasts longer. So then I want to put it down the center of my face, and then I just want to work my way out, and I'm just really pouncing. I'm pressing and pouncing at the same time just to really work that product into your face. Now, if you guys have seen TikTok recently, there is a TikTok video going around where people are taking their foundation on a kabuki brush and putting that kabuki brush in water and then putting it on their face. I tried it because I was hoping it would work. And it's one of those things that as you're doing it, you're thinking this is the most ridiculous thing. I do think sometimes people are just looking for a way to go viral. And if it's outlandish enough and it seems crazy enough, then somebody might pick it up and say, oh, that's a great idea. I did not find it to work at all. I would not recommend it. It was actually a sloppy mess. Now this is a medium to full coverage foundation. It is buildable, so if I wanted to take this look from a day look to an evening look, I could build upon this, or if I had some discoloration somewhere that I wanted to remove with this foundation, it is pigmented enough in order to do that. So that's what I love about this YSL foundation so much. And normally I use Real Technique sponges because they have that angle on them. I like for foundation, I like this side of it because it's just more round and get it everywhere. This is a little bit more of a push, where this is more of a pounce and a roll, which helps the foundation blend into your skin and look more of a natural wear than a foundation look. I like to bring that down my jawline and then onto my neck and then softly start to pull it back. I mean, this is, you know, makeup 101, your neck and your face should match. So I just like to pull that down and then start to blend it a little bit. Now the next step is more personal, but that you guys do what you want from here. I like to have my eyebrows on because it's hard for me to gauge what the rest of my base is looking like if I don't have my eyebrows done. Now, some people like to do their whole eye before they do their face. Some people like to do their base first. I polled you guys a few months ago to ask you what you prefer. It was a pretty close 50-50 on who likes to do eyes first and who likes to do base first. I've toyed around with it, I've experimented, and I found that I like to do my eyebrows. I don't know, I just feel like my eyebrows have now set the stage for what the look's gonna look like. You know, if you have a bad eyebrow day, it just doesn't really feel like it's gonna be a good day. So for eyebrows, I do like to have a little bit darker as it goes out. So I like to draw the bottom line, if you will, and just get that as straight as I can. And then I like to have the pencil and just finish the tail before I do the front of the brow, bringing that tail out so that it is angled at the corner of my eye, but not pointed straightly down, just little tiny hair strokes. I'll do the same on the other side. When it comes to the eyebrows, there's a few schools of thought in terms of the overall color. You want to have a little bit of warmth, but not too much warmth because you're going to add warmth in your bronzer and probably in your blush. But in terms of the color of the eyebrow, I like to have my eyebrow just a shade darker than my root color. Now, if you have black hair, then having a black eyebrow will be dark. So in that case, you want to go a shade lighter according to Sir John and his sessions. And I like that thought process. Next, I'm going to go in with my concealer. Now, a few things that came out of this lesson that I thought was fantastic that I had not ever thought of was taking your concealer and putting it on the back of your hand and applying it with a light synthetic fluffy brush. This has a nice tapered end. This is a small fluffy brush. And the reason you would put it on this way is because A, it applies lightly a little bit at a time so it's buildable. It gives you a nice control of the product and you can blend it as you go. And another thing that he said that I really liked is that you don't want to put your concealer all the way to the root of your bottom lashes because then you go spend time trying to put color back there with things like eyeliner and eyeshadow. So you want to leave about where your eyelash ends on your lower lashes, leave that the color that it is. Now, if it's really a strong discoloration, then you'll want to put a light coat of concealer. But you want to have that natural curve to your eye because no one's eye is completely flat on their face. And we have that natural curve coming from the bottom. So you'd want to leave a little bit of that there. And that tip's made a big difference when it comes to doing my eyes. So we're just going to take that concealer with that light fluffy brush. I'm going to put it where I want it. Oftentimes that discoloration can be right in that inner corner of the eye. So I really want to cover that nicely. I'm using the Creaseless concealer from Tarte. It's a little thick and can be difficult to work with a brush. So if you have a thinner consistency, that might be an easier concealer to work with when you go to this method. But I've enjoyed the way this looks. It doesn't look as cakey, which I really love, especially going through winter. And then you'll just take your ring finger because it's the softest finger that applies the least amount of pressure, and you will just warm up where you just placed everything and melt it into the skin. And taking that concealer just a little bit out to the temples gives you a nice lifted look. And you'll want to hold your brush for this application at the back of the brush. That way you apply the least amount of pressure, keeping it a nice light application, but still the coverage that you're looking for. Blend with this brush right into your foundation so that it's a nice seamless look. One of the things I've tried to do more of is just let some of my natural skin, I know, wild concept, to let some of my natural skin shine through and not cover up every little thing, because at this stage of life, it is what it is and I am who I am, and I love the little imperfections that I have because no one else has those same exact imperfections in the exact same place. And if they do, then we're in good company. So I'm going to embrace it. I say that as I put on 4 more layers of makeup. The irony of that is not lost on me. Next, we're gonna go into sculpting. Now, a couple things to think about when it comes to sculpting your face or contouring. I have a complete video that's gonna be out next week on sculpting or contouring for a mature face, because it is different. So what I'm gonna show with you today is just sort of the general sculpting areas and techniques, but keep these techniques in mind when next week's video, and I'll go over them again, is how to sculpt your specific maturing face and the areas that you want to pay special attention to. And you may be asking, aren't we going to set that concealer with the powder? We are. We're just going to finish the rest of our cream application, and then we'll put on our different powders in the different areas. So next I'm going to go in with a cream contour or sculpting cream, and I'm going to use the NARS number 2. And you may think, gosh, that looks a little bit dark. Though we're going to use such a light amount that it's going to be a very natural looking application, I promise. Keep in mind, when it comes to a contour or a sculpting cream, you want to stay to the gray tones and more cool tones. Bronzer, totally different. It's warm, it's bringing back the sunshine of the face. Your contour is really creating the shadows of the face. And so those are more cool, grayish type browns. So I want to go with my damp beauty sponge. And because this is a thicker cream, it's a little hard to put on my back of my hand. So I'm just going to go on to the sponge directly. Oh, that looks cute. And then I'm going to dab it out so that I don't get too much product on my face. And I'm just going to go ever so lightly around the perimeter of my face, down along the jawline, and then we'll go in and blend that. Again, just a soft, pouncy motion. And if you feel like you got a little bit more than you want, then just go back to the other side of your sponge and press it and blend it. And that will allow your foundation color and your contour sculpting color to blend together. Now also, when it comes to your sculpting or your contour, you don't want to go farther in to your face than right around that outside area of your eye or the pupil of your eye. I don't like to sculpt too much coming into my face because I have cheekbones that are continuing to be prominent on my face, and so I don't want to emphasize or create more of a cheekbone than I already have. If that's not the case for you and you want to create that cheekbone, then you want to go underneath where you want that cheekbone to be to create that shadow effect. And you want to find a contour that's light enough that it can take a powder on top of it with some color. So we're going to add color with the contour, and then our powder is going to also have a little bit of color to it, because you have to set this with a powder or else it will look muddy when you put on any other product on top of your contour, your sculpting. So you don't want to go too dark with your sculpting cream, especially in the winter. And I like to go just underneath the jawline just to create a nice sculpted jaw without looking really sculpted. Next, I'll take a synthetic eyeshadow pencil and go back to that contour and or sculpting cream that we used and go over my eyelids just in the area and start to sculpt out my eye area just where I have the crease. And then from the crease, come just slightly down the nose where you're just adding a little bit of sculpting to the nose. My nose is pretty darn narrow, so I don't like to do too much of this. I don't want my nose to be any more narrow than it is, but no one's nose is all a monocolor that we put from the foundation. So I just need to add just a little bit of shadowing and then curve that right back into the crease area. And then once I have that, I will just go back in with that same synthetic brush and press this around. And what this does is helps act as a base for your eyeshadow if you want to use more eyeshadow. And it also creates just enough of a contour to your eyelids that you don't need to use a shadow. You can use this as a good everyday look. You could also just put a touch of glimmer on your center of your eye if you wanted. You could add just mascara and call it a day. I like this step because it adds a consistent look to the whole face and not a different look between my eyes and my face. The colors are the same, the tones are the same, the shading is the same, so it just makes a more natural look. Then I'm going to take the back of my beauty sponge and just dab that in a little bit so that it's not such a straight, harsh line. And I'm doing that with the foundation side. Next, I'm gonna grab a small size eyeshadow fluffy brush. This is a tapered fluffy brush. This is the Angie Hot and Flashy A503. I love this brush because of the size and the precision it allows. And I'm gonna grab a sculpting cream. Now, this is a contour powder, sculpting powder. This is the Kevin Aquan in medium. It is the perfect shade for me. And I just wanna show you real quickly, this is the contour powder. This is the bronzing powder. So you can see the difference of how warm the bronzing powder is versus the cool gray tones of the contour or sculpting powder. That's what you're looking for when you're picking out those two powders. And because we have aging, more mature skin, we do not want a lot of powder on our face. So I'm just gonna go in again with that fluffy brush And I'm just gonna go over ever so slightly and swirl, swirl, swirl wherever I put that contour, just to set that and keep it from looking muddy with the application of any other colors. When you see people have really beautiful makeup and you're like, gosh, that just looks so put together and consistent and flawless, this is one of those steps that helps create that look. And as I age, I prefer to use a smaller brush because it makes me slow down and do it right where I want versus getting too much powder from contour and then too much bronze powder and then heaven forbid too much blush powder and any highlight powder. And before you know it, you've got 4 layers of powder in some areas that may not need any powder at all. Okay, sorry guys, I hope I'm gonna pick up right where I left off, but as I was doing this sculpting powder right through here, the pest spray people showed up and I was like, no, could you please spray over here by this area where I'm filming first. So we took a 15-minute pause. Hopefully you'll never be the wiser, except I just told you. Finishing the powder on the sculpting work, I'm just gonna go over that area on the eyelids where we put that sculpting cream or the contour cream. I'm going to use those 2 words interchangeably just to avoid any confusion. Sculpting is sort of an advanced technique of contouring according to Sir John in his lessons, which makes complete sense. Contouring is a word I think that's just been overused. I think contouring is almost misleading, especially as we have more mature skin and a more mature bone structure and then sagging skin over that bone structure. We don't want to be contouring. There's only so much of that we can do, but we can sculpt areas of our existing bone structure and where our skin lacking collagen has fallen on said bone structure, which again is that video that's coming out next week. I think you guys will really enjoy that if you like that whole sculpting / contouring approach to your face. So we're just gonna finish going over any of that sculpting cream that we used and setting it with a little powder. And next I'm gonna get a big fluffy brush. And by big, I mean a big loose powder brush. And I am loving this 105 by BK Beauty. If you have somebody on your shopping list that is a makeup lover and you're just not sure what else to get them, this is a great makeup brush for bronzer, where if you have oily skin, you'll want to set everything with a loose powder. But this brush, it's very soft, it's contoured well, it's fun to hold, it's light. I am a big fan of this brush. Now for bronzing, I'm just gonna pick up this Dior Backstage, whatever bronzer you have, just make sure it is more to the warm tones, but not orangey. I do get questions a lot of which bronzer I use. Going into winter, I still want to look like I've got a little bit of sun, even though I live in Seattle where the sun doesn't shine that much in the winter. I don't want to look like I have not seen the sun. I like to use this Dior Backstage because it's a nice warm, but it's not orange. Some of the Bobbi Brown ones tend to look a little bit more orangey on me. The other thing I look for in a bronzer is one that has a little bit of glow to it, because I wear a matte foundation. So I want to add a little bit of glow. So if you wear a foundation that is a satin finish or a glowy finish, then a bronzer that does not have a glow is fine. A matte bronzer would be fine. Although I like to have just that bronzer just adds the right type of glow in the right areas. Tap off the excess. Real light fluffiness everywhere. Now the next thing I want to do is go in and add a little bit of powder to where we added that concealer, and in order to do that, a few things to keep in mind. I like to use a smaller tapered eyeshadow brush, real light and fluffy, and you want to go back in and make sure that all of that product is pushed into any creases or wrinkles that you have, because however it looks before you set it, it's going to look a little bit more magnified after you set it. So I want no wrinkles, I want no divots, no rivers, nothing. So I like to tap that concealer in one last time using my ring fingers, and then grab that light fluffy taper brush and set it with a light powder. Now one of the things that Sir John did that I thought was brilliant was he said to find the right powder for under the eyes, take a little bit of it and blow it. Not too much. I'm gonna have a whiteout in here. And if it blows off and it's light and fluffy, that means that that powder is light enough to go under the eyes. If you blow it and it settles quickly, that means it's a heavier powder and it can settle into your fine lines and your wrinkles and mix in with that concealer much faster. So I've done that, you guys, and because of it, I switched from a very popular under eye powder that I've used for a long time and brought me back to my RCMA, which is I think $15. I mean, you just can't beat that. And then I usually just take what's inside the lid, tap off the extra, and then lightly go where I put that concealer and press it in. And what this light fluffy brush does is it allows you to get the right amount of product, because too dense of a brush will push too much powder on, and we don't want that. And then I just take whatever's left and go back over my eyelids so that whatever application I put on, I know my eyelids are prepped and ready to go. And because I tend to get a little bit oily just around the corners of my nose, I'll take a little bit of that powder left over and just go right next to that area that's oily. Now, if you have an oily T-zone, then you'll want to just do a light dusting through here and wherever your oil is, maybe on your chin. But keep the rest of it without powder, especially if you have dry skin. And that just keeps the skin looking more youthful and plumped and moisturized versus dry and crepey. And we know what dry skin looks like. I don't need to create that visual for you. Next, we're gonna go in with some blush. I'm gonna use this cream blush by LYS. This is in Self Love. This is where you can use your powder blush if you have it. I know a lot of us love powder blush. I'm gonna use cream just so that I can show you the technique. If you use powder blush, no real difference other than you don't need to layer it with a powder because it is a powder. So with that, I'm gonna take a damp beauty sponge. I'm holding the Real Technique ones at the angle down here so that I've got this outer curvature, and that's where I'm gonna put that product, just like that. And then I wanna take it between the top of my ear and the corner of my mouth. That's where you want that blush. But then also when you smile, the apple of your cheeks is that fatty area. Now, as we age, that fatty area isn't quite so fat and fluffy. It tends to sink. So I'm not a big fan of putting blush on the apples of your cheek because as we age, that apple gets a little farther from the tree. So I like to just look at this angle from here to here, look at that outer point of my cheekbone, and then take that angle, because it's perfect, I'm holding it right, because that's perfect, just like that. And I just like to pounce it right around there, not bringing it all the way back to my ear and not bringing it any more forward than the arch of my eyebrow. Now that to me is just a good marker because my arch is a little bit farther on the side of my face. If your arch tends to be right in the center of your eye, that is still an okay placement for blush, but you wouldn't want to bring that blush any more close to your nose or the center of your face than probably 2 fingers. So that might be an easier measure for you. And then I like to just put it there on both sides to make sure that I have an even application, especially with a little bit darker blush. And once I feel like it's an even application, I will just lightly pounce that in and blending it ever so softly. And then bringing it up just a little on the temple to warm up any of that contour that we had, add a little bit of flesh tone into that area just to help attract the eyes there so that there does look like there's some more volume there than there is. And then I'll put just a little bit around my chin and back up. If you find it's too light, you can add some more. If you found that it's a little bit darker than you want, then you can set this with a light blush powder or pick up your foundation sponge and go right over the top of it. And see how pretty that looks? It's just a nice natural flush tone. I love this look because my foundation application was a light application. That blush is light. And then I'm just gonna put another light layer of foundation that just gives that sort of blush from within look. Now you may be thinking, well, we used a powder bronzer and then you're gonna layer it with cream. Yes, that's true. And that's why you wanna go very, very light with that bronzer and then a light coat of this. And you'll see how it's gonna all pull together. Now, if you wear glasses, you definitely wanna set under here with a powder so that your glasses don't slide. Now from here, you could go in with your highlighter. I like to have a cream highlighter, so I'm gonna pick up a synthetic brush. This is the Natasha Denona Dream Palette Trio, and I'm gonna just put it where the sun would normally be shining, right around this area. The highlights of my cheekbones. Again, I have high cheekbones that are pretty pronounced, so I don't like to really emphasize this area with a lot of highlighter, just enough to look natural. And then I'm gonna put just a little bit down the center of my nose. Now, if you don't think you can draw a straight line with a brush, then just put a little bit on your finger and press it, just to give a little bit of a glow there. But because you're using a brush, I've made the mistake of having like a not so straight line. I was in a hurry and it just didn't, it looked like my nose was crooked all day. I don't know how else to explain it than that. And I guess that is the magic of makeup. You can have a crooked, broken nose with just a slight untrained highlight hand. And then I like to put just a little bit at the tip of the Cupid's bow and just a little bit in the tear duct. If you have oily skin, you'll want to take a nice big fluffy brush and add just a real light coating of powder all over your face to set this throughout the day, or if you're gonna be out in humidity and you need it to set. If you wear glasses and have dry to combination skin, then you'll wanna take a fluffy brush with the loose powder right where the rims of your glasses are going to sit on your face, and this helps keep your lids from sliding down and bunching up any makeup that you have there. If you don't wear glasses and have dry to combination skin, then you'll wanna reach for that setting mist that we used in the beginning and set this all over our face. And for all skin types, whether you're oily, combination, or dry, if you're gonna be out for a long amount of time, you want your makeup to look just as good as it did during first application, then I would recommend a setting spray like the Mist and Fix by Makeup Forever. I'm gonna be on a couple Zoom calls, I'll be in meetings downtown, so I'm just gonna use this little setting spray that we used earlier. And from that, we'll throw on a little bit of lip, some mascara, and we'll be good to go. I'm back with 2 coats of mascara and a little bit of lip gloss, and we are ready to start our day. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. It is a simple, everyday makeup look, not too heavy, not too overdone, and you're gonna wanna hit the notification bell so that you're notified when the next video comes out next week, and that is gonna be taking this everyday look, flawless foundation, kick it up a notch to a more glamorous evening look for our more mature skin. And with the holidays right around the corner, there will be plenty of days where we'll have one look in the day and we'll need to quickly adjust to an evening look, so be sure that you're back for that. The other video next week is how to sculpt a more mature face. You don't wanna miss that. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.